Community Foundation. We are co-leads with Southwest Michigan First for our grant from ECIC, helping lead the implementation of our regional plan. So our regional plan was published in 2024 after more than a year of planning led by Pulse at the W.E. of John Institute. I actually was just telling Kathy the last time I was in this room was July 2023, probably with several of you during the planning process. So this has been truly really exciting to see a regional plan come together, be published with so many contributors, as you can see on the screen. This was really a cross-sector collaboration led by Pulse, and I think the implementation is off to a really, really strong start. So we were blessed right out of the gates to have support from our partners at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation to provide funding to help us start to organize. And one of the, I think, beautiful and unique components of our plan is that our plan called for implementation at the county level, which I think makes it particularly strong. And so we were able to immediately assemble 5 lead implementation teams, which many of you are a part of. So thank you so much for that, because we could not have those teams without your participation. And we were able to organize those and start implementing this plan. And then this year in April, ECIC came out with additional funding to help support implementation. So we have been working with 2 layers of funding, which is really, really exciting. And that grant is being administered by our foundation and Southwest Michigan First. So part of the charge that we are, part of our charge with the ECIC funding is to implement our regional plan, but to focus on implementing strategies that help childcare supply building, to strengthen the childcare workforce, to implement strategies to help us share information, recruit and engage our employers in TriShare. So a lot of our teams have been hosting luncheons or engaging with employers. Paul's just held some webinars to help us with strategies to do that. To improve the coordination and alignment of navigations resources to help parents better navigate finding childcare, and then to also explore and leverage additional funding sources. One unique piece to our plan is that we have a funder stakeholder group, and we actually have a funders group that gets together quarterly, led by the Kellogg Foundation. Megan, where are you? Thank you for spearheading that effort, so that as funders we can come together and talk about how we can align our resources and better support the implementation of this plan. And I'm going to hand it over to Kathy.
So why do we do this work, right? Some of you may not have children, some of you may never have to deal with childcare, but we all are affected by it. And we know that based on the report that was done by Untapped Potential, which we've got it right down here on the bottom so you can see the source. We know that we as a state lose almost $3 billion a year because we don't have adequate childcare. And so this is an issue that affects us all, even if we don't have children. It is important for us to make sure that we're actually getting together cross-sectorally to make sure that we're addressing it. And one of the unique features of our planning process is that each one of the sections of our report, and I really suggest you go to our website, which is pulseroadmap.org, and read the plan itself if you haven't yet, is organized by sector. So one thing that we said from the very beginning was that we are not going to do this and tell other people what to do. We are going to get economic developers together, and they're going to tell each other what to do. And we're going to get municipalities together, and they're going to say what they can do. And I think that's the beauty of our plan, is that it is really organized in that way. So then the implementation becomes easier because the plan itself goes to those sectors, and we're going to get in sectors again later and talk about what might be getting in the way, what successes have we had actually working in this way. So there's the economic impact and the economic reason why we do this work, but there's also the social reason, right? We know that children, when they have quality early learning experiences, do better over the course of their entire life. We want to make sure that they have quality experiences that aren't necessarily dependent on their parents' work situation, but that they can experience these things so that they can become full, thriving adults. Every one of us deserves that, and we want to make sure that we are positioning ourselves and creating the conditions for that to happen. So we know it's been proven right now, the return on investment, because we always have to get down to the dollars, right? For every dollar we invest in high quality early education, $7 to $12 return on investment. And that's from Heckman. We've got other things that say it's even higher, right? So we know that this works. There's so much brain development that happens before the age of 5. When we can create that space for those children to have the things they need, we all benefit, right? Society is better. The other way we organize was by making sure that we were focused on the systems, which means that we need to understand the root causes of why we are in the position we're in. So systems, for those of you who know systems, get the exact outcomes they are designed to get. So if we don't like the outcomes, then we have to change the system. So we organized ourselves around understanding what the system was, where it was failing us, and what needed to be fixed. We don't have all the money in the world, so we can't fix all of it, so we have to prioritize, we have to figure out where we want to put our energy, and that's the work that we've been doing over the course of this last year, but I'm going to go into that a little bit. So childcare itself as a business, and this won't be news to many of you in the room, is a pretty broken system. And childcare, despite being in a hostile environment, right, not having the resources it needs, not getting the, let's be honest, not getting the fair due it's due, right? People don't look at it as the profession that it deserves. It still grows, it still thrives. We still have children getting the things they need, despite there being such a weak economic driver that's actually supporting the field itself. We know that overregulation and underinvestment equals this broken system. These are voices directly from the field, people who are out there doing the work. And on the bottom, the quote is really about how we all pay for it, even if it's not our own children that we're doing this. So our children pay for it, we're paying for it, but in extremely inefficient ways. So how do we become more efficient? How do we get more coordinated and aligned and really more collaborative in our approach to do this work? And so we know, our process it wasn't just getting professionals in a room. We wanted to hear from families, and we did a lot of surveying of families. We partnered with Stanford University's Rapid EC project, and they actually did surveys for us that helped us understand the experiences families were having. And we know that families are struggling to access childcare that is affordable, quality, and aligned with their needs, because just because we have numbers that might say that there is something available does not mean that it actually meets the needs of that family. So we have to, this is the dynamic nature of childcare, which makes it very complicated, right? Childcare itself is a wicked problem, which is a technical term, which just means it's going to require lots of different strategies, right? There's no one's going to come in here and save us. This is going to require a lot of different things that we have to do. And we know that you'll have these slides, we can probably make them available to you afterwards, but on the right is the root cause analysis that drove our implementation recommendations, right? So how are we going to address the actual trends that we see in the system so that we can actually make change? And so we've been chipping away at that for the last year. And we know that the biggest root cause of all is that we have a very weak child care workforce, in as much as it is underfunded and the folks that are doing it aren't paid enough. Right? So this is a labor crisis as much as it is a childcare crisis, which impacts our workforce. This is a document that was designed to actually be presented to our elected officials last year. And to cut it all short, families can't afford to pay and teachers can't afford to stay. So if we want to change this, we're going to have to make sure that we're looking at both sides of that equation and working on both sides to make change happen. The back part of this document, which you have on your tables as well as a takeaway, is how childcare is actually paid for now. I think if you're not in this system, you don't really understand how little money goes into it from the government. And if we want to change the system, it's going to require that we increase public investment, for sure. We can't do this alone. And we can't pay our way out of it with our foundations, because based on this report that came out earlier this year, that asked, could philanthropy make up the difference of the dollars that are going to be gone from the federal government, the cuts that we're seeing across the board, and already the underinvestment that was happening before any of this happened. We know that $6.75 trillion a year is what the government spends to support communities. And if you took all of the assets of all of the private foundations across the entire country, that adds up to only $1.466 trillion. I know that's a lot of money. But if we liquidated all those assets, it would last us 79 days of a single year. So our foundations are a key partner, but they are not our savior. They are not going to be able to address these giant gaps. We have to get very creative. We have to figure out how we're going to do this together in ways that actually amplify our collective good. And I know that we can do it, and we've been making a lot of strides there. So what have we accomplished since we started? I also want to give a big shout out to our planning team, because we didn't wait for the plan to be done to actually take action. We did a lot during that planning year, and I'm really proud of us for doing that. Not only did we develop and launch the 5 implementation teams that Lindsay talked about, We had our inaugural Michigan Child Care Champions last year that highlighted our employers in the state who are actually stepping up and stepping in this child care space. The second one is September 17th. You've got tents on your table that will give you more information about that. We developed a couple additional roadmaps. We already had the employer roadmap developed before we started this process, but we realized in the process of this that there was a lot that our municipal partners and our development partners could use to help guide, like where is their entry point? What do they do once they decide they want to actually address this issue? So those roadmaps were developed using the same folks that helped us develop our plan, so that we've got tools that are available on our website for that. We actually learned through our municipal partnerships about this thing called redevelopment ready communities. And I've got Laura and Marcy in the room right now from the city of Kalamazoo, the city of Battle Creek, who really helped me understand, like, what is it? And when I asked the question, well, how can you be redevelopment ready if you don't have childcare? They had the same question. So we took it to the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and found a very willing ear. Michelle Parkinen and Nate Scramlin said, you're absolutely right, let's get to work and do something about it. So we created a child care toolkit that is an amendment to the redevelopment ready communities. So if you're a redevelopment ready communities, for those of you who don't know, it tells businesses, we're good. We've done all the work to make it easy for you to actually grow and develop here. So that's going to attract new businesses, and now we can also say, and here's the way that you can work on childcare. We have the Funders Collaborative that's already been mentioned a couple times that was formed. And then we partnered to develop and launch a child care back office, which is a managed service organization that will provide administrative services for child care businesses across the state. It's going to be a fee-for-service offer. This is not something that's going to be completely grant funded, although we need grant funding to get it launched. But this is something that came out of almost every region's surveys of childcare businesses. It's something they could use support around. If I need help with enrollment or doing my taxes or paying my employees, where can I go to get that support? And all of those things are available through that organization. We secured our regional grant, and then we also, Pulse was asked to join the ECIC project team to provide technical assistance to all of the regions across the state. So we've made a dent. We've done a lot of work in the last year. We tell you now you know why. There's even more, and as our implementation teams get up and they talk about their own wins, you're going to see how much action we're taking. And this happens when you get the right people at the table, and you start talking about the real issues, and you really start looking at what assets you have, because initially you may not think you have any, and then you start to uncover them, and it becomes really obvious that you're just putting a puzzle together, and you're going to be able to see the finished product. So we also have a really big announcement, and Beth, thank you for sending this to me at 9 o'clock last night to make sure we got it incorporated. The state is partnered with the Small Business Association of Michigan, and we now have benefit access to our child care workers through that. Now this is worthy of a lot of yes. So Miami has invested $4.4 million to provide access to health, life, and retirement benefits for child care employees statewide. It's not going to do it all, but it is a start, right? We're getting ourselves into these spaces where we should have been all along. And so small businesses have been benefiting from this. Childcare is small business, so we just need to make sure that we're continuing to make that progress. And 2 nights ago, the state announced this wage pilot that is actually going to launch January 26th, where money's actually going into the hands of childcare workers. But what we have to do before then is we've got to raise a lot of money. We've got to identify who's going to run this, how we're going to administer it. But this is intended to give a $200 supplement per year subsidy to our part-time workers and $300 for full-time teachers and associates. Lots to be worked out about this, but we wanted everybody to know that this is on the horizon. Proposals are due August 15th, so it's not like we have a whole lot of time, but this is going to take some of our attention in the next month for sure. A lot you can see that the grantees are expected to do. So we're doing a game of hot potato right now, and we're trying to see right, what the state's going to allow as to who can actually run this. And it's only gone to the regional coalitions, the co-leads and the leads right now, but we don't know if there's any flexibility there. All right. Okay. So we're going to turn it over now to our policy experts, Sean and Beth.
So my name is Sean Mazinski. I am the new Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives for Southwest Michigan First. And you want me to just go first?
I'm Beth Berglund. I'm the Director of Policy and Strategy for Michigan Transformation Collective. and we facilitate the Kalamazoo table for Region 8.
Perfect. Let me go to my slide. All right, so before I get started, I wanted to check in and make sure, are there any elected officials or previous elected officials in the House today?
How about municipal administrators, who are actually a lot more important?
Awesome. So I just wanted to say thank you. Your support means a lot to this coalition and the work on early childhood success. So I wanted to get into the state budget a bit and kind of give a brief overview of that. So the current status is, as of July 10, the legislature missed the July 1st deadline to finalize the state budget for 2026. So why the delay? How did we get here? Well, there's a few reasons. One being a big one is divided government. So the Democrats obviously control the Senate, the Republicans control the House. And so with that, there's been a lot of competing proposals. The two chambers have kind of traded off and introduced competing bills, different budgets, and then just kind of like funding formulas, policy riders, and just the major differences between in and that. So it's been almost like a bad game of battleship, with a lot on the line. And then also too, a big one is federal uncertainty. So 40.9% of Michigan's 2026 budget relies on federal dollars. That's a lot. And some lawmakers believed it was necessary to wait for the final version of the big, beautiful bill, which passed on July 1st, ironically, and then was signed on July 4th. And so with that, we do now know that the BBB, for short, will impact programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and Head Start, which adds to the complexity of Michigan budget talks. And so how does that really impact, especially with early childhood care and then also education? Well, schools start the fiscal year without finalized state funding. Programs like child care access, licensing reform, and provider support are now in limbo, and state agencies will likely pause and delay on major decisions until the new budget is in place. And the earliest we're looking at is late September, early October, which, we'll have to sit and wait. And so now the legislature does return on July 15th, and like I just said, the final deadline, well, actually I didn't say this yet, but the final deadline is October 1st. And that's when the fiscal year starts, and also to avoid a government shutdown, that's when it has to be on the governor's desk. And if it's not, then we will have a temporary shutdown, or possibly a longer shutdown. We will shall see, right? So this isn't unprecedented. We have been here before. There was a partial shutdown in 2007, and with that, there is still time, but pressure is mounting and it's building. So one thing that all of us here can do is keep monitoring, stay focused, and really reach out to your elected officials on the things that you care about and what you see fit. One thing that I did find astonishing is that there's only been 6 bills passed this year. That's one a month. We have a full-time legislature.
Related to child care. Not 6 bills total.
Well, yeah, sorry. But still, yeah. But still, that is oopsie. So, but anyways, our job is to keep working together, staying ready, and acting when needed. And so also too, before I hand it off, this QR code, this is actually from the ECIC, and it's an early childhood bill tracker. It's been a good resource for myself, who's very new to the job, to kind of go through of what's been introduced and what's been talked about. And with that, I will pass it to Beth, who will dive in a little deeper onto the landscape of everything and what we have moving forward.
Yeah, can you switch slides? Yes. Thank you. So the QR code that's here leads to the ECIC's bill tracker, and the slide after this one will sort of break down what was in those pieces of legislation. But we really wanted to take the step back into our actual regional plan and say, what were our recommendations? What were the things that in all of that planning we wanted as a community to advocate for? So you see lots of X's and check marks with buts, so I'll add a little bit more context on those. So childcare rates to a living wage for childcare workers, no, but there's this pilot that the state just announced for each region to start addressing their own wage problems in their region. So it's like, did we fix it as a region? No, we didn't, but we are constantly in communication with ECIC, with MyLeap, with folks who were in the process of asking the federal government for the grant that actually funded this, when thankfully we got the money last year before all this mess. So some of these things are still in place and are still coming to fruition, where the gears all started moving 2 years ago. So not yet, but we're getting there. Last year there was a 2 child care center pilot. There was a wage pilot. Now we're expanding to every region across the state will have its own pilot that it manages. So we're sort of developing the path to get there. Automatically qualifying child care workers and parents enrolled in Michigan Works programs for the child care subsidy? No. Last year the governor had proposed child care workers getting the subsidy in their budget. This year it didn't come out in any proposal. Not the governor, not the House, not the Senate. So these things that are national trends are not showing up in our elected officials' priorities. Fund implementation of the child care plans, yes, but it's also temporary. It also requires an annual appropriation. For our region to get started, thankfully, we did have Megan Russell Johnson at the Kellogg Foundation, who spearheaded all of us getting this work going last year. If we hadn't done that, we would have started in April. So all of us started last fall, and we're up to this point where we can actually come and talk about what our communities are doing. No other community in the state had that. So we are exceptionally lucky to have had that. So one of the issues is presumptive eligibility for the child care subsidy, which is essentially you get a job, you qualify economically. Right now, you have to wait until the state processes your application to have your child care paid for. We were talking about trying to have that be automatic as soon as you get that job, that you don't have to wait until you have a pay stub to actually submit your application. That hasn't happened. No legislator has come up after all of these recommendations came out across the state. They were all so similar. Not one legislator nor the governor's office has taken it on them to take those recommendations and move them. Expanding funding and access to TriShare, yeah, but so the program hasn't received an increase in funding, but because it's so underutilized, they've got about $11 million in the bucket. They've only been given $3.4 million each year. So this $11 million backlog, they're trying to resolve that by increasing the eligibility wage to 400% of the poverty level to see if they can get more employers to participate and more families to qualify. Funding a regional child care licensing navigator to smooth the licensing process, no, but that's something that we as a community could come together and figure out. We wouldn't necessarily need any state investment for that to come to fruition. And then developing recommendations for municipal governments. Yes, we did that. Look at that. We have a check mark. So what's on the horizon? The 3 different packages that have been proposed in the Senate. There's a omnibus that really looks at prenatal care, particularly to close the gap in infant mortality rates for Black and brown women and babies. In making sure that insurance had to cover prenatal care, non-stress tests, things like that actually aren't covered for many people on their health insurance. The Senate child care proposal is not super exciting. We would hoped it was going to be a lot more exciting. It's really a $5,000 working parent tax credit that would be similar to the child tax credit, which if that passed, it would be literally a miracle given who is in control of the House. But it also would codify RX Kids, and it would codify TriShare, which are not actually in the state code, they're just funded in the budget. So there's no actual policy language saying that those programs exist. They're just sort of like pilot line item programs in the state budget that need to be codified in those state departments in order for them to stay. And then the best thing would be tying the child care subsidy rates to be adjusted annually to inflation instead of having to go back to them every single year and ask for increases. We're the only state that does this. We're the only state that has the community come back and say, please, can you give me a living wage every year, instead of tying it to some metric where it would increase automatically. The House proposals which came out of the House Republican caucus, would create a child care savings program similar to a dependent care account, but particular for everyone. It wouldn't just be if your employer was recommending it. Eliminates the taxes on all baby items, from pacifiers to cribs to car seats, clothing, pretty much everything else. The big elephant in the room is the minimum wage is coming. 18 months from now, we're going to have a minimum wage that's higher than what our average childcare worker is making. Our average is $14.27 an hour across all job titles in this region. 15 is more than that. If the child care subsidy doesn't get increased so that child care providers can pay that wage, they will not survive the next 18 months. I don't know if any of you have ever worked for a small business, but you have to have a ramp up to a cost increase that's that substantial. Childcare workers leave the industry every single day because they were offered a job for $1 more at a gas station. So if we want any amount of quality care, we have to have legislators that are going to be willing to actually look at this macro system, systemic thing that is happening to them as small businesses and actually address it. All that being said, we have come to basically the point where we realize that our region is really far ahead of a lot of other people in terms of our capacity to advocate. And we also don't have a space for it because all of this is paid for by the state. So we are maybe going to start an advocacy committee that will meet separately, that we will then hopefully be able to join other advocacy committees from other regions. Right now there's a growing group called the Michigan Child Care Provider Collective, which is specifically for child care teachers and owners to advocate for themselves without a filter. We do not intend to replicate that. If anybody wants to know about it, I'm on the board, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. They're fabulous advocates for themselves. And we need all of these other systems to take note, and we need other people in those other systems to be in this advocacy work.
I would definitely be interested in it, and I actually believe that, you know, for economic development, childcare is a space that we can use as a tool, obviously, and it can help recruit and help retain. So I'd be happy to join. So if there's someone else out there who'd like to join, let us know. Cool. And that's pretty much what I have. Yeah.
Before we jump, that was a lot. If anybody wants to reach out to either one of us, our emails are in the slides.
Yep.
So
I brought business cards down too,
yeah.
So luckily the office is upstairs. Thank you.
When you guys hear a public policy update, are you really, really grateful that there's people whose job is to do that? Yeah, right. Every time I hear one, I'm like, thank you for explaining that to me, because I could not. So thank you guys so much for that. I also want to draw your attention to this up here. So we have Mary Laura. She is sitting at this table over here, and she is with Mary Laura Mao Arts and Consulting, and this is a real-time graphic facilitation of our event. Isn't that really cool? So you'll see things pop up throughout the event, things that we're talking about. If you see something that you're like, oh, Mary Laura, I don't know. She said you are welcome to come up to the table and tell her. I might give you a look. Don't mess with my graphic facilitator, but you know, you can do it, you can do it. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. Please forgive me, I'm gonna read from this paper. I'm gonna introduce Susan Rosas. She's gonna be our special guest speaker today. Her bio is incredible. Prepare to pick your jaws up off the ground. So please forgive that I'm going to read this paper, but I don't want to miss a single bit of it, okay? So Susan is currently the CEO of the YWCA here in Kalamazoo. But before coming to Kalamazoo, Susan worked across national and global child welfare and education systems with a particular focus on the needs of families exposed to violence. She served as an advisor to the Cambodian government, a national director for the US's largest home visitation program for immigrant families, the founder of the Office of Refugee Resettlement National Call Center and Sexual Abuse Hotline, the creator of multiple state intensive service programs for trafficked children, and an advisor for specialized early child care programs, including for migrant families, military families, families with incarcerated parents, and families exposed to violence. Today, Susan leads the YWCA, is both a systems change organization and a direct service provider. In early childcare arena, YWCA offers a variety of low and no cost early childcare education classrooms in Kalamazoo for children 0 to 5. The organization champions collective action efforts like those we are discussing today to improve the lives of children here. And we get to hear from her. So please welcome up Susan as she speaks to us today.
So pleased to be here and so appreciate the invitation to come and speak with folks today. It seems like a very timely opportunity to speak on behalf of YWCA Kalamazoo, as today is actually Black Women's Equal Pay Day, and it feels like the stars aligned, and this is exactly when we were supposed to meet today and have conversation about how equity ties into what we're about to do today. So I'm here representing YWCA Kalamazoo, which is now in our 140th year as an organization here in Kalamazoo. And our mission is to eliminate racism and to empower women. We are both a direct service provider and we are also a systems change advocate. And what that means is that the direct service that we provide feeds into the policy recommendations and the broader systems change efforts that we aim to bring to fruition. And there's this really helpful feedback between the direct service and the policy impact so that we're learning as we grow. So for example, our current offerings include services that counter sexual violence, which is the ultimate expression of oppression. And also it includes maternal child health because Black babies in Kalamazoo die at 3 times the rate as white babies here locally. With our express charge to eliminate racism and empower women, it should be no surprise that early childhood education has also been an area of focus for us for now 40 years. There are lots of compelling and obvious arguments for a strong childcare sector. We talked through some of them earlier today. Ultimately, people cannot work if they don't have childcare, and low quality care holds back kids developmentally. It creates a permanent social cost. I think one of the phrases in an earlier presentation said something to the effect of, we're already paying the cost for childcare based on the losses that we're seeing socially. So high quality, accessible childcare is necessary for any economic advancement. We already know that to be true. But the reason YWCA spends its time on early childhood education is because there are deeply embedded racist and sexist barriers that prevent what should be a seemingly easy economic solution from coming to fruition. So as today is Black Women's Equal Pay Day, this is the perfect time for us to reflect on that truth. In the US, we carry with us some core beliefs that are stemmed from repetition and from tradition. And sometimes, as you may be aware, history was not always terribly kind to women and people of color. And we are still seeing this today. Yet it is this unsavory past that sometimes creates the unconscious beliefs that we might not know we hold today, because that's just how it's always been. And so today we're going to question why we might hold some of these beliefs so that we can dispose of some of these beliefs. So we're going to start easy. One unspoken belief that our society shares is that childcare is women's work. That's a phrase we hear often, women's work. 94% of the early childhood education sector workforce is comprised of women. But why? As women entered the workforce at a heightened pace following World War II, there were few jobs that our society said were gender appropriate for women. Women were already expected to be the primary caregivers in their homes, and they had done it without pay for a very long time. And so these new roles that opened in childcare, in nursing, in elder care, they fell almost exclusively to women. And since women had always done it on their own, in their own homes, it wasn't considered work. And when I say it wasn't considered, I mean our government did not consider it to be work. Childcare workers were excluded from Social Security benefits for decades because it wasn't considered work. And at the same time, anti-feminist groups fought against childcare programming to exist at all, because in their view, women should be at home caring for their own kids and not caring for other children. There were repeated efforts to try to fund childcare nationally, and these anti-feminist efforts foiled those efforts repeatedly. The intent was to keep women at home with their own kids. The sector's work was always grossly underpaid, so as not to incentivize women to enter the workforce. Today, the few men who enter the childcare workforce are paid, on average, 20% more than their equally qualified women peers. As our ideas about women working began to shift, this core belief that women are the natural caregivers and that the work belongs to women and that it's devalued because it belongs to women, those beliefs stayed stuck, even as women returned to the workforce. So I'm going to say also a little bit easy now, that another core belief that we all share is that childcare is unskilled work. So in 2020, our Social Security Administration defined unskilled work as, and I'll quote, work which needs little or no judgment to do simple duties that can be learned on the job in a short period of time. I heard a lot of, I think we all feel the same way about this, right? This has always been the way that childcare has been defined, again because the women who do the work are believed to be naturals, and that childcare is a responsibility as old as time and we just know how to do it. Accordingly, the Department of Labor ranks childcare work as their second to lowest skill level. They have a 5-scale skill level. They've rated childcare work as a 2. It defines the work as needing a high school diploma and 4 to 6 months of experience to be satisfactory to be effective in this role. And yet, the research is clear that higher teacher credentials and more classroom experience are definitively and highly correlated with improved outcomes for young children. As early childhood teacher skill advances, the increasingly high quality care that they provide offers children gains that those babies then pass down to their own children when they eventually have kids. The difference between low and high quality early childhood care is profound. Children who receive high quality early childhood education are more likely than their peers to graduate from high school, to sustain healthy, non-violent relationships, and to maintain economic stability in adulthood. And they pass those gains on to the next generation. And yet, we continue to grossly underpay workers in this field, to grossly underinvest in early childhood education because of this misinformed belief that teacher skill development is unworthy of our investment. Okay, staying easy. Here's another belief. Women love kids, and what early childhood educators don't earn in salary, they make up in the love for their jobs. We hear this all the time too, but we don't tell doctors who love their jobs that they should make less money because their work has social good. We don't tell real estate developers that they should make less money if they get excited to do their work every day. But we have a societal, visceral reaction to the idea of social service workers wanting more pay. Where does this come from? So social work, including childcare, was not recognized as work for decades, and it wasn't until 1984 that the sector was fully incorporated into social safety net reforms. In the commonly held whitewashed version of social work history, the sector emerged in the progressive era of the late 1800s, founded by Jane Addams, who was a wealthy white woman in Chicago. In these early days, the profession was defined by wealthy white women doing charity work who loved the work and who didn't need the money. It would have been shameful for them to accept pay for their efforts, both due to their extraordinary privilege and because they were women. And though the sector has exploded over the last 100 years, that history of privilege and power remains ingrained in the sector in lots of ways. But one of those ways is that this is women's work, and therefore it's not really work. And another is that it is shameful for us to expect fair compensation. So now I'm going to get a little bit squirmy now. Childcare is a privilege accessible to wealthy people who can pay for lesser privileged, unskilled women workers to care for their children. Childcare was once a private luxury. As women were expected to stay home and take care of cleaning, cooking, and childcare, the hiring of in-home support was available to women of means who could afford to hire women of lesser means. Paying an external person to provide care emerged as a luxury accessible only to the wealthy. And as I previously indicated, efforts for universal childcare were thwarted in the 60s and 70s precisely to make childcare harder to access so that women stayed home in their place. That reality remains today when families are paying more than $12,000 or more on child care for infants and toddlers per child. For many families, women choose to exit the workforce and to stay home to care for their children because the tuition is unaffordable based on their income. And that's exactly as it's designed. I think you made the comment, when you see an outcome, it's based on how we've designed the system and we need to change the system. This is the outcome that the system was designed to realize. So I'm going to add now some key adjectives to that last belief that bring us in a more honest way closer to the core of the issue here. Childcare is a privilege accessible to wealthy white people who can pay for lesser privileged, unskilled women, workers of color to care for their children. Childcare as a trade sector emerged under indentured servitude. In the Reconstruction era following the Civil War, there was a concerted effort to funnel black women into childcare roles. As quoted from historian Jacqueline Jones, this effort was designed, and I quote, to reconstruct black femininity consistent with prevailing societal norms as a strategy for gaining white respect and presumably greater opportunities for African Americans, end quote. Domestic service training programs emerged nationally to train black women in childcare expressly to improve race relations. Wages remained exploitatively low as black workers had no means for advocacy and no laws to protect them. While wealthy white women could have been shamed for demanding pay due to their privilege and womanhood, black women would have faced far greater consequence for demanding fair pay. Black women and later Latina and immigrant women entered the childcare workforce at rates exponentially higher than other professions because childcare remained one of the only avenues for income available. Still today, twice as many black women are represented in the childcare workforce compared to the overall workforce, and nearly 3 times as many Latinas are represented in childcare compared to workers across all professions. This chapter in history is clearly not closed. These are the unspoken but deeply ingrained beliefs that uphold the gross underinvestment in early childhood education. There is no business model that cares for infants from low-income families that breaks even. Such businesses will always operate at a loss. There is no early childhood business model that pays its staff fairly and breaks even. Childcare businesses do not pay early childhood staff fairly because if they did, they would operate at a loss. YWCA cares almost exclusively for infants and toddlers from low-income families. In the early childhood arena, YWCA pays comparatively really well for the sector. Our staff start at, wait for it, $16 an hour, and they earn progressively more income based on the credentials they earn and the skills tests they pass. A lead teacher, the person who writes the lessons plans, tailors the lessons to meet the developmental needs of each child, meets with the parents, tracks the child development, they make $24 an hour. YWCA provides all employees with benefits. We guarantee full-time hours. If the center closes due to weather, we still pay people because they're depending on the income. These are novel practices across child welfare, or across early childhood education, and they shouldn't be. They are approaching normal practices that any other sector would enjoy, and $16 is not livable. But since adjusting our wages, our workforce fully stabilized almost immediately. There is our solution to the childcare staffing crisis. Indeed, with only a moderate pay increase, our staff report being able to work fewer jobs to pay their bills. Staff evictions and homelessness stopped. Staff reported they are now able to eat a balanced diet instead of spending all of their grocery money on only their children. They reported their kids are doing better in school, that they finally had enough money to leave violent relationships, that they were able to enroll in higher education. And following those adjustments, we no longer had staff sleeping in their cars in our parking lot. Our pay is nowhere near as fair as it should be. And yet, on average, our compensation package at YWCA is 40% higher than the average early childhood compensation scheme. We pay dearly as an organization to pay for this pay and benefits package. It costs YWCA 3 times the cost of tuition to make this happen. But at YWCA, we are privileged to be a 140-year institution with a full fundraising team that fundraises more than $2 million every year in grants and donations solely for our childcare to operate equitably. If our fundraising falls short, classrooms close and people lose jobs. All of us understand childcare to be the key to breaking intergenerational poverty. It's the key to skyrocketing an economy. And yet, societally, we rely on donors' disposable income and kind-heartedness as if high-quality childcare is a perk and not a necessity. Our community is better than this, and if there was any community who could prove what would happen if we properly invested in early childhood education, if we actually met the cost of equitable care as a standard, such that all businesses could grow and could compete and could thrive, such that early childcare workers could support their families on their wages, we would raise a generation that would break the mold. The state isn't doing it. The federal government isn't doing it. It's up to us to break through these broken belief systems and to invest in the tiniest neighbors whose very lives will be shaped by our commitment, whose own children will then stand on their shoulders. We could be the trailblazers who collectively declare our commitment to a just and thriving community. We just need to throw out these tired and these cruel beliefs about the sector and about each other and focus instead on what we know will work. Investing in our youngest children works. This collectively is the group to do it. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready for it.
Thank you so much. And I know you don't do it for the thanks, but thank you for paying your folks a good wage with a clear trajectory to where they could be. It's amazing. And I think it gave us all a space to kind of reflect on like, well shoot, why isn't the rest of it like that and not better, right? And so thank you for sharing with us, talking to us, and gosh, I feel like I could like chew on that for a long time, which I think is the point. All right, we are going to talk about what we have going on in Region 8. So I know we heard this too, but you know, we've got a lot going on right now. We're doing a lot of work, and thanks to the WK Kellogg Foundation, we were able to start this work immediately, right? And so now we're going to have each of our implementation teams come up and talk about a little bit of what they have going on and what they have done. And so first up, we're going to have Mallory Van Wagner and Erica Heminger from Branch County Community Foundation talk about the Branch County implementation team.
I'm Mallory Van Wagner, and I am one of the co-leads for Branch County, the Branch County Community Foundation. And we are a very rural county, so as you know, limited resources in rural counties and strapped teams that are already trying to do a lot of this work. If you have worked with a small community, you know this. So our team has really spent some time focusing on what we can achieve during the duration of this grant and how we can be most impactful. So we have identified our top 3 priorities as building a pipeline for early education and not just making it sustainable, but tapping into resources that are already there and ensuring that we can continue to have qualified people filling the spots as they come open to sustain, you know, good providers in our area. One of the other ones is addressing that we are a child care desert. So we do not have enough spots for all of the children that need care within our community. So by doing that, it's kind of twofold. We want to obviously increase spots. We want to have new providers, but we also want to support the providers that we have, saving them from burnout and the different things that are really impacting them. So we are trying to make sure that we are giving them what they need to thrive in our community. And then finally, it'll be engaging employers. So this is really like a mind shift for them and trying to help them become invested into why they need to be part of the solution. We want to continue to build these relationships with employers so that we can help them meet the workforce goals by addressing the real child care needs that their employees face. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to my colleague so she can talk about some of the things we've done.
Perfect. So again, Erica Heminger with the Branch County Community Foundation. But Mallory just kind of put in a synopsis of the work that we're doing, but I wanted to touch on just some quick wins that we've accomplished so far. So the first one is in supporting and retaining current providers. So we've been working really tirelessly with the City of Coldwater, who is here today. Woo! So working with them, reviewing the zoning ordinances that we have specifically for the city, and having them become in line with state language, having them become more transparent, and then also more flexible for incoming providers or providers that we currently have that want to expand. So it's been really great. They've been a great partner working with us. So we are hopeful that we will have something finalized in the coming weeks. But then an additional thing that they're willing to do, which is really great for our villages and our small townships in Branch County, is provide a template of these changes that the city is making that is already vetted, right? That we can give to our smaller villages and townships so they can have that access and have just an easier way for them to implement them if they would like as well. So just pave the way and make it a little bit easier. So we're really excited about that. Another thing that we're doing again with providers is launching quarterly meetings, which we have providers in the room from Branch County too. So it's really exciting that we have representation. But bringing our providers together, talking about, right, what their biggest needs are and how we as a community and all of the supporters that we do have, we can work on their needs and identifying ways to help them get over those. So that's one thing that we're doing. Another one again is with employers and with TriShare. So that is probably our biggest challenge, is working with employers and getting that mind shift. But we are working with a small group. I'm really ambitious. I'm like, we're going to get all of them together and they're all going to change their mind at once. Didn't work, shocker. So we are going to start with smaller groups and really focus on smaller employers as well. We're seeing a little bit more receptiveness in that group, so we're really working on that, and we have some promising conversations coming up as well. And then a final win that we're working on for the talent pipeline is really working with a small group in Branch County to, again, address the workforce pipeline, specifically in Branch County. How can we get those who might be interested in this work engaged, but then get them access to the tools that they need so then we can increase our slots in Branch County. So we're a small county, but we are mighty and we're doing great work, so we're really excited to share it with you guys. Thank you.
So our next update is going to be the Calhoun County update, and we are going to have Kathy Zenda-Wilson with Pulse give that update.
Thank you very much. All right, it's good to be back. Later, can I have that? Just really quick. Okay, I'm not going to change my mind. All right, so in Calhoun County, we have the benefit of having a pretty tight network of folks focused on early childhood. We've been working at, Pulse started in 2012. Yes, I think that was the year. Thank you, Maria, for confirming that. So we're in our 13th year of working really closely with partners like the Calhoun Intermediate School District, who's in the room right now, and others, KCC, we've got Community Action in the room, who all, they work tirelessly on behalf of children to make sure that they have the conditions they need to be able to thrive. And so this coalition that we have built around childcare is an extension of that. And as a result, we have joined forces with our early childhood leaders team and our Calhoun County Child Care Coalition, because we had such alignment across our goals that we thought it was a much better use of our time to have all of us there. So when you get to the next slide, you're going to see a whole lot of names, because we have a lot of people who are engaged. We have a lot of priorities. A lot of them have been again, cooking for a while. They're not necessarily new, but I'm going to go over a few of them. We have to figure out how to generate revenue to make this work sustainable. We can say we're really, really grateful for the Kellogg Foundation and the Early Childhood Investment Corporation investments, but they're not enough. And all they do is provide us access to the money we need to actually organize ourselves. There isn't money in there to build the supply of childcare. We don't have enough money to be able to do the things that we really want to do. So we've got to generate revenue, and that's going to have to be a priority for all of us, and we'll work together about that. We are really proud of our approach, our systemic approach to embed childcare into all of the sectors. And as partners, what we're doing is trying to help those folks see what that looks like. So we actually have an opportunity with our economic development partner at Southwest Michigan First. Later this month, right? July 28th. I think we're going to be coming in and doing training around the development roadmap for the development experts that they have that are working with employers. So they'll have what they need in their toolbox to be able to do the work that they need to do that blends, right, embeds childcare into the functions they have instead of feeling like it's something extra. And we're doing that with others, municipalities, and we'll talk a little bit about our city of Battle Creek that we're so proud of. We are supporting home-based, center-based childcare business owners. We provide technical assistance. There's a lot of work that's being done really just to help understand what their needs are and get them connected to the resources they need, such as Michigan's Child Care Back Office, which I mentioned earlier. We are increasing the number of employers who are participating in TriShare. We have a TriShare work group that has been formed, and they're going to be working at, let's not just go and tell an employer about TriShare, let's actually help them understand how to do it, because that's a big challenge. And folks like our partners at Child Care Resources and the Kalamazoo Intermediate School District, who are actually hubs, that is a big ask to be able to go out and create the relationships with the employers. And that's why we need our economic developers at the table. They have the established relationships. If they understand TriShare really well, it's lessening the burden on the other parts of the system that could then just administer it. We are launching innovative workforce solutions. So I want Lisa Farrell is in the room from Community Action. We are on year 3 of a rental assistance program that is providing rental relief for our childcare workers in certain centers. And surprise, much like what Susan said, when you increase wages, people actually stick around in their jobs. Some of the things we've heard from the folks who participate are like, my kid could play soccer for the first time. I got out of survival mode for the first time in my adult life. Like these are not like, you think that these things are minimal and they're life changing for folks. And that's with a little bit of help that was temporary, right? So we know we have it within our grasp to do, we have to build the will. And I think that what we heard in our last thing, and as well, Susan, in all your comments, is that the toughest thing for us to change are mindsets. But if we don't change them, none of this other stuff happens, right? Mindsets are what drive policy, they drive our resource allocation, they drive the way we function and operate with each other, so we have to focus on a lot of advocacy there too. And then we are looking at what conditions need to exist for childcare businesses to open and to grow. And this means working with our municipal partners. What are the barriers that they might put in the place of people being able to expand their businesses? And so we're really grateful to have a partner in the city of Battle Creek who actually reviewed all of their zoning policies, who've looked at how can they be more childcare friendly in their approach to this, and they've made real changes. And so we are sharing those real changes with other municipalities. They're not the only one. Kalamazoo's doing some great stuff, but I'm here right now representing Kalamazoo. So I'm gonna gas you up, as Georgia says, and Ginny and Georgia, for anybody who watches it. So, it's a really good show. But we know that we don't have enough money. $100,000 over 7 counties from ECIC is not going to give us enough to grow the supply of childcare. So we have to figure out what soil are they trying to grow in, and can we make sure the soil works, right? And so that's what we're using these resources to do. We are also advocating for public investment. I think we've said it, you're going to hear it continually. Without public investment, none of this stuff is going to work. We don't have enough money. That's going to be harder to do in this environment. So we just have to figure out how we're talking about it, who we have to talk to, and we have to just keep at it. We struggle. We have Taneka. Hi, Taneka. Thomas is on year 3 of trying to open a center, right? Like, this is not easy work. And she just followed me into the bathroom to tell me about her most recent hurdle, which is the fire safety stuff that she has to do, right? So there's a lot that we need to unpack from a regulations perspective that could make it easier as well. But that is a challenge for us. And folks who want to grow or start struggle to find capital. It is not readily available, so we have to be thinking about that. That's going to be a continued challenge for us. This policy landscape impacts funding, so everybody is in this space of kind of being scared and concerned, rightfully so. And because we have so many different sectors that we need to engage and really activate, there are competing priorities. And that makes it hard. So we have to figure out where we fit in, and that's why this embedded approach to showing people how childcare can be woven into the things they already do is so critically important. So our ask is to stay engaged. Think about childcare at every table you sit at. If you are the only person in the room who talks about it, you're starting to change mindsets. So just get in there and do it. Sometimes it'll feel awkward. That's okay, I'm awkward all the time. Beth is always awkward, she just pointed at herself. So you'll get used to it. The awkwardness becomes normal and you'll be okay with it. And it matters, because when people start hearing it, we normalize it. And then we start to chip away at those beliefs that Susan just so delicately told us about. You can champion it everywhere you go. We encourage you to do so. And if you need any help on how to do that, we're here. So we'll let you reach out to us. I'll move it over to the next team and give this back to Rachel for the next update. But you will see on the next slide our very extensive coalition. And if you are on here, thank you so much for all the work that you do.
I want to touch on that too. It was kind of the space of, hey, talk about childcare when you're in the rooms that you're in. I was just in a conversation about someone who does fire protection services and was like, if you ever have a company that needs help, let me know. So hey, if we share what we're struggling with, someone in the room might know somebody that you need to know. So right, it's a really important thing for us to always be sharing what we have going on so that we can be a community together. That's what we're doing here. So next we're going to do our Kalamazoo County update with Beth Berglund from the Michigan Transformation Collective. Kalamazoo County, we have so many partners who have participated in the last 6 months in this work. It has been starting in November. We had a few months of just setting the stage. Where are we? What are the services and programs that we actually have in our community? Because we do have an incredible amount of assets and a wealth of organizations who are fighting for kids every day. We just didn't have a level set of who is doing what, who does work with who, how do resources get into parents' hands, how do these programs refer to each other. So in November and December, we had really these pulling apart the regional plan. What's really in it? What did it recommend? Are those recommendations, do we even need those here? What do we have? What are our assets? In January, we started 3 months of sort of learning sessions about what tools we have, what do we have access to. We had amazing things from KRISA and the county programs that are serving a lot of who create a lot of the programs who are not serving direct childcare for 0 to 3, so that we could really have like the full landscape of what the programs are that are impacting families' access to care overall. And then starting in April, we had 4 work groups that started meeting and some of our facilitators are here, so I'm going to say your names, don't be embarrassed. Dr. Regina Nelson from WMU facilitated our professional development work group. Jay Kion, who's on our team, who's not here this evening, facilitated a work group on teacher support, really thinking about ways in which teachers could hold space together, and also building their advocacy capacity and figuring out ways for those folks to be in space together that's not in a professional development situation. Capacity building, Kelly Adams from Employee Resource Network, and Rachel Teisengass facilitated our capacity building tables, really thinking about what is it in community that is stopping us from building more childcare capacity. And then resource navigation, Ashley Bergeron from Griffin Place, who is our 211 home in Kalamazoo County, facilitated our table, really thinking about resource navigation. How do parents find out what kind of care is available? How do programs refer to each other? A lot of the as you can imagine, when they were reporting out, it was a lot of this. Like, it was a lot of, well, we can't, in terms of professional development, we've got all of these pathways for people in Kalamazoo County. We have a fantastic apprenticeship program. We have these incredible Western Michigan University, we have Kalamazoo Valley Community College. We've got all of these universities and institutions that are doing professional development. But at the end of the day, if the wage isn't a living wage, once they get out, what is it all for? What are they getting the degree for? The federal government is going to stop giving early childhood education as a degree that you can get federal student loans for. Because the average wage is $29,000 a year, and if you just had a high school diploma, the average wage is $36,000 a year in any other industry with just a high school diploma. So if they can't even get federal student loans
What are we going to do? So these are the big conversations that have been coming up in these work groups. We've got a few more weeks while we're finalizing the draft. They will all be receiving the draft so that whatever is they have captured, what we've captured in their thoughts and their comments in their work group, they can then review. So we've got a few weeks before that happens. But 2 other projects have come up during this time. I said in January we started learning about other opportunities. There is a table that has started to meet that is talking about a children's millage in this county. And several of you in this room are on the steering committee, I'm not going to say your names, but really thinking about all of those resources, those public resources that it will take, that we know we don't have the state and federal level that are going to be supporting that. What is it that we can do for our own community? Just like Susan said, what are the resources that we need that we can provide for our own? We know that we can't rely on shifting political will at different levels to provide long-term change for families. So that table has been coming together. And then the second one, which is super exciting, is in partnership with the National LISC office. They are looking at developing a toolkit for communities around the country that will address the intersection between housing and childcare. So that folks who are providing unlicensed care right now because they can't get a license because they don't own their home, to help them in the homeownership process. And so a bunch of folks, including the County Land Bank and the Treasurer's Office and home-based childcare providers and others, the City of Kalamazoo, are coming together to talk about what it would look like to start building our own knowledge towards that path, but also informing this national toolkit that will be offered to communities nationally. Some of the other cool things that we learned about, really, in terms of innovative strategies, the City of Kalamazoo is working with some consultants that are talking about childcare co-ops, and they came in and presented to us in terms of thinking about childcare capacity, in terms of thinking about professional development, ways in which childcare teachers could then go and create their own childcare in a co-op model. What happens when your childcare director, who's been running it for 35 years, retires? Turning it into a co-op is an idea that lots of people are doing around this country, so that you don't have to sell it to some big box childcare center, but you can keep it in its integrity and what it used to be. Again, our biggest challenge is the money is often for short-term pilot programs, like the regional plans, like the regional coalitions. The work that the ground that we are laying right now, we don't have a long-term path for where it will go, so trying to figure that out as a region, we're going to need to really focus on. And then state and federal resources are continually changing priorities, and so being able to show that something is making an impact is almost impossible when funding changes every couple of years. Our ask is to help build the case for public support for childcare wherever you are, and ongoing support for the coalition, so community-led systemic strategies have time to come to fruition.
All right, next we have St. Joseph County with Lindsay Aguilar with the Sturgis Area Community Foundation.
All right, thank you. I have to give a shout out to our program officer, Elizabeth Whitehead, who leads this work for our office. She is doing an amazing job. Such an amazing job that when she asked me if she could have this week off to be with her family in Utah, I said, sure, I'll share your updates. So, no, she's doing a really amazing job. We're really grateful to have some of the members of our implementation team here tonight. We are a very similar county to Branch, so we've been working really closely with them as well, and you'll hear some similarities to their update. We have prioritized increasing business supports for our child care providers. So early on, we brought together our child care providers in the county for a dinner and informal conversation to share the plan and just say, what do you think of these recommendations? How is this resonating with you? The plan was great, Kathy, so they really, spot on with the recommendations. But what came out was that they did want to get together. Many of the professional development and the supports that had been to them had existed in St. Joseph County over the years, had sort of been moved outside of county, and they were finding travel to Kalamazoo and other cities for that development an obstacle. So we have relaunched a quarterly group that meets at the Dresser Business Center at our local community college, intentionally placed there because we are continuing to try to shift that mindset and focus on helping our child care providers see themselves as business owners and have that training. And so all of those meetings are being put together with their input, and it's off to a really great start. We're also focusing on supply building. So we are in the process of working with our partners, our local Great Start collaborative professionals and child care providers to develop a program that's modeled off of a program that Marquette has been implementing for a couple of years to help align resources to either unlicensed providers who want to become licensed or individuals who would like to open a licensed home center or a center to help them with the cost for licensing and to help them get to that, just to navigate that entire process. So we look forward to launching that later this fall. We're also assessing the feasibility of a couple of new centers, one in the north part of the county and one in Sturgis. So like Branch, we started off really ambitious, wanting to engage employers, and we thought, we'll just feed them lunch and talk to them about TriShare, and they're all going to enroll. Also did not happen. So we continue, though. I think we're shifting our strategy, and we are going to start just one-on-one meeting with them, using some of the suggestions that Pulse is providing to engage them and get them to really encourage enrollment. I did hear yesterday that our county had a meeting about TriShare, so I'm really hopeful that when we get back, maybe we'll have an update there. So that's exciting. And then we're also working with our Great Start Collaborative and Great Start to Quality professionals to talk about navigation, how to improve our county's Help Me Grow site. Not a lot of parents know about it. It's not necessarily, where it needs to be for us to share. And so we are holding some parent focus groups, actually for the region, later this month and next month. More information coming on those soon, and working with them to help align some resources to make that possible. So some wins, just from our foundation, our board has been so wonderful. They've made childcare a strategic funding priority, which was really, really exciting. So we just had a new strategic plan come out earlier this year, and childcare is a priority for us, so that's huge. Thank you. We've set aside some of our unrestricted resources just for childcare, and we've also embedded the work into the role of our program officer. So Elizabeth was actually a part-time employee, and we've made that a full-time position, so that after the life of this, we know that sustainability and carrying out this work is really important. So we're all in. We're really excited. We're just asking our community to stay engaged and continue to help us innovate and make things happen. So thank you.
I just wanted to give you all as much time as possible to continue reflecting on Susan's program, so I had to sit as far in the back as I could get. So we are in a little bit of a unique situation with the Southwest Michigan Regional Chamber. Also, I'm Molly. Did I introduce myself? I'm Molly McFadden. I'm with the Southwest Michigan Regional Chamber, and we are in the unique position that we are serving Berrien, Cass, and Van Buren County for this coalition. And we quickly realized we wanted to make sure that each county, despite the fact that we're serving all three, each county had their own coalition, so that we could focus on those county-specific priorities, address their specific needs, but make sure we're still aligned with broader regional priorities. And so as we started talking to the counties about their needs, in Berrien, it was very clear we wanted to engage the private sector to see what impact they could have on the funding landscape to be able to increase the number of slots. In Cass, we wanted to make sure that even kids in the most rural communities had access to the highest quality of care. And in Van Buren, we wanted to make sure that parents had an option. There's very limited slots to choose from, and you're kind of stuck with whatever you can access. And so overwhelmingly in all the communities, what we were hearing is child care providers needed access to the resources to do more than just survive. They needed to be able to thrive, to grow, and to expand to meet the needs we're seeing in all of these communities. So we have been working specifically on adding licensed slots and preserving existing programs, building awareness and increasing opportunities for the private sector and employer participation through TriShare, providing technical assistance to businesses. And so these things take time, but an event like this is a great opportunity to get to start to share some of those smaller wins. So one of the big ones has been creating alignment. So I don't know, my fun, unfun fact about Berrien County is we have, for every 10 residents, there's a nonprofit.
We have a higher nonprofit density than the New York metropolitan area. So creating alignment is huge. So we were able to streamline efforts between other existing childcare efforts in the community so everyone is rowing in the same direction. And that alone has been a monumental thing for Berrien County. We've been engaging employers in TriShare. We held an info session in April. Currently, Cass County has no employers participating in TriShare. Berrien County has 2. We had 21 employers attend that information session to learn more. It is still slow going. There's getting the information, and there's convincing your HR that this is something we need to include in the budget and do the paperwork for. But we have one employer that's come and is hopefully going to be offering TriShare in the next month. So that's huge. One of the big issues we've heard about TriShare though is that's great, but you have to have licensed care. In my community, there isn't licensed care. How are we going to be able to take advantage of this opportunity? So increasing and preserving existing slots has been huge. We're currently working with 4 different providers to help them access a facility, a licensable facility to be able to offer care. I know we had a proposal put in and I'm hoping on good news later this week, so stay tuned for that. So that's potentially 60 slots we're preserving with more new slots to come in the community. We're looking to host an event on July 21st, yes, with local chambers to see how they can be involved in the process, how they can engage employers, and what role they can do to provide technical assistance to businesses and expand the opportunities for childcare providers and childcare businesses in our communities. We're also, the Southwest Michigan Chamber recently received a grant to provide technical assistance to businesses. So we have $250,000 to be able to provide technical assistance directly to childcare providers and to refer them to other resources and ecosystem partners to give them the strength they need to survive. Because a lot of times we're hearing from providers, I'm great at running a daycare. I am not an HR person. I'm not a budget person. And so being able to give them the tools to be everything they need to be for their business to succeed. So our ask ultimately, when we talk about everything going on from the federal level on down to the local level, we know the challenges. We hear the systemic issues that are embedded that cause the root of this problem. We hear the mindsets we need to change. But the great advantage of going last is you just heard 4 presentations that say it's not impossible and we are getting there. So even the tiniest bit of progress is worth highlighting and celebrating. So we're extremely thankful to all of our partners, and I have this beautiful table of all of our partners from Van Buren right here at the front and everyone else that's involved. So thank you all for coming today, and then I am going to turn it back over to Rachel.
So much really awesome work happening in Region 8. Like I just get so pumped to hear all of the things that are moving forward with a lot of partners, and it's so great. So we were gonna do an activity and we really wanna hear from you guys, but we're doing so much work. We ate up so much of our time, but we're still gonna hear from you. So we're gonna do it a little bit differently, okay? So you gotta bear with me here. We had given you guys stickers on your name tags where you kind of selected what sector you're in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna show of hands in this room. We're not gonna make you move, we're gonna make you move. We're gonna let you stay where you're seated. So if you are in the space of in child care business owner, director, or professional, or in the early childhood support services, that green circle, would you raise your hand? Awesome. Everyone look around, you can see who those people are. All right, if you are in that red circle, the developers, workforce, economic development, community development, raise your hand. Awesome, everyone see them? Great. Okay, if you have a dark blue circle, elected officials, employers, funders, could you please raise your hand? Great. Municipalities, the yellow circle. Awesome. And then I know we have some parent leaders in the crowd as well. Could you raise your hand if you're a parent leader on a coalition? Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you guys all so much for being here. We're really excited. So in front of you, I think it's the last piece of paper in your stack. There are a bunch of questions. And by a bunch, I mean like a few. So totally doable, right? 49.
There is 600 questions and you have to answer them all. All right, so I encourage you, please take notes as we do this, but we're gonna do it as a group, okay? And Kathy is going to actually help me because she's gonna be a microphone runner. So we're gonna have you speak into a microphone. And listen, we're all friends here. We're all working on the same stuff, so that's not scary. We're not scared of speaking into a microphone. So I'm gonna ask these questions, and I want at least one person from each sector to answer, right? We want to hear all of the voices in here. And then when you raise your hand, Kathy's gonna run you a microphone, unless I'm closer, then you can have mine. All right, so our first question for tonight is, what can your sector do to contribute to addressing the child care crisis? So when you answer, I want you to say which county or counties you're a part of, which sector you represent, and then your answer. All right? Give you guys a few seconds to think about this, and if you have an answer, raise your hand and we'll, ooh, I love that. That was so quick.
My name is Wendy Springberg. I'm with the Small Business Development Center based out of Western Michigan University, and we help all 7 counties. Yeah, you do. Yeah, we do. So the way that we do, we contribute is we help new businesses, existing businesses with their business plan, with their financial modeling to help them understand how to improve the performance if they can, how to find creative resources of how to fund their business, and everything in between, from marketing to HR to cybersecurity to a whole bunch of different elements of what we do to support small businesses, including child care businesses. So
There was a lot of child care hands raised.
reach out to us, please. We're here to help and support you and serve you.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. Okay, I saw another hand shoot up over here. Bronwyn.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bronwyn Drost. I'm an economic development and workforce development consultant. Something that I think our sector can do, in particular economic development, is to recognize that childcare is infrastructure, and without significant investment and continued work like this, we're not going to be able to thrive as communities. And that's a big switch for some of our corporate partners to understand. It's a big task for economic developers to understand. It's sort of, anyway, I won't ramble, but childcare is infrastructure. Our sector definitely needs to continue to advocate for continued work.
Somebody over here? Very good. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Andre Carr with YWCA Kalamazoo. I think one thing we can do that this current situation has forced us into is to intentional partnership. We can no longer do this by ourselves in silos, but collectively as a group, we're serving the same population, the same community. We can achieve a lot more, we can provide for a lot more of our community that we're trying to serve. So intentional partnership is what I would say that we could do to continue to address this crisis.
Thank you. We've gotten 2 green stickers and a red sticker. So we need a blue and a yellow. Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, just a little sprinkle of peer pressure.
I'm Robert Hall. I'm with the City of Coldwater in Branch County. I'm actually the Planning and Zoning Administrator for the city. One of the things that we're doing is we're working with the Branch County Community Foundation to help change the ordinances and make it more transparent and easier for child care access for individuals seeking applications.
All right, maybe one more. Someone with a light green sticker, not a dark green sticker. That's okay.
I would say I'm support services. So definitely, yeah. I'm Lisa Farrell from Community Action, and I really do the support services. And the things that we found is just figuring, first of all, going about spreading the good word of how important this sector really is and how this workforce helps all the other workforces. So we do that. And then also looking at ways to incentivize the workforce, and so they feel seen, and I think that's one thing that it's just little baby gifts. You know, we'd love to give more, but just small gifts to them mean a lot. And in our county, we have seen, well, with our housing program, which I help with, manage it, I guess right now. We've had 97% retention with that program. And then with our training program, we've had 86%. And I think there's been over 200 people that have gotten credentials, and 86% are still in the field, and I think that's huge. Yeah.
Awesome, that's so good. All right, let's go to the second question here. What can you do individually or organizationally to implement the regional plan recommendations?
Marcy Gillette, City of Battle Creek, so municipal government, and I am sporting the yellow sticker tonight. I think one of the things as it relates to municipal government is oftentimes administration or leadership in local government doesn't recognize that there's a place for them in the sandbox as it relates to childcare. And I know for the City of Battle Creek, when we do our citizen surveys and we do our 5-year consolidated plan to decide how we're going to spend funds in our community, it's important that that at least shows up, right? So that residents of the community can respond and we can receive that feedback. And I think void of it even showing up, it never enters the conversation. So just lifting up at very minimum to understand that municipal government does have a role in a lot of opportunities where we can touch childcare, even though that's not a direct service delivery that we provide.
Hello, I'm April Goodwin. I'm the Director of Child Care Resource and Referral. And as the hub for TriShare, we're here to help all of our plans implement TriShare and get it into our all of our employers, because we know that will help all of our families along the way and give them back some of their funds back into their livelihood. So we as a resource center or as an agency are here to help all of you guys in any way we can to help implement childcare, TriShare.
Good evening, my name is Kevin Ford. I'm with the City of Kalamazoo on the Economic Development team. What I can do individually is continue to advocate for this effort. I have done that working with April and the TriShare locally. So continue to do that, continue to be in these rooms. I think my colleague Laura Lamb is here, but other than that, we're the only 2 people from the city that's in this room. Also connect. So when I'm in spaces, we talk about small businesses and entrepreneurship development, entrepreneurial ecosystem building. I'm in those spaces, but nobody from childcare is in there. So, you know, making those connections, kind of like Silicon Valley, just keeping the connections cracking and create dense networks of different people and getting them connected. Another thing, I know the City of Kalamazoo in particular is serious about equity, and a lot of other folks are. So when we talk about equity and when we talk about opportunity for all, that includes our child care businesses, that includes our working families that struggle to get child care access. So when we talk about opportunity for all, those are things that connect with what we've been talking about in this room, and continue to push that and make it clearer and make it concrete and put capital behind it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep, that's right.
I think one thing we can all do individually as we have these coalitions and have these conversations is remember the folks that can't always be in the room. So the parents that might not have access to childcare to attend a meeting that's after hours, or the providers that work during the day so they can't always make those meetings. So go out of your way to seek input from those voices and be able to represent those perspectives within the coalition the best you can, not speaking for them or over them, but using your power to amplify those voices for those that might not be able to be part of the conversation.
Ned Hale at Sturgis Area Community Foundation with a blue dot. Lindsley's wincing, wondering what I'm going to say. Don't forget to use a little imagination. For instance, we're investigating intergenerational child care, because that's something that Sturgis has got a great elder care campus, and we're looking into working with them. I happen to be on that board also, so that happens to be a thing for me. So use a little imagination when you think about childcare, because there's a lot of opportunities in a lot of different directions that you might find that you can explore that is not really being thought of right now. And you're going to need to do that to get around some of these traditional things that are providing roadblocks right at the moment.
Imagination and childcare should go hand in hand.
You've got Mallory back there. I'll get Mallory to go first.
Hi, I'm Abra Smith with Kid Network. So we're the out of school time sector, and our goal and focus is for youth to thrive, period. And so we recognize the importance of being connected to early child care, also to higher education and all the other, we call them planks within the system, economic development, housing, all of that, for youth to thrive. And so one way that we can support, I'm going to go back to the first question, is just by using our network to continue to share this information, and to continue to invite people to the Pulse meetings, those important things that are happening, but just continuing to use our voice and share and spread the word. So let's continue to connect, like ways that we can share different things that are happening across the network. So just that communication within the network for sure.
Another thing that I was going to say is just making sure that we are thinking about our total populations. In Branch County, we have a very high Yemeni population as well as a Haitian Creole population, and they approach childcare very differently than traditional people. It tends to be very group oriented, people are taking their care to their friends and their family members. So we are really going to be changing the conversation and engaging them and just letting them know the different pathways and the resources that are available to them. And also our adult education population, because adult education and getting your GED is such a great thing, but then what? So just showing them that there's other pathways and different things that you can approach and ways that they can be part of the solution.
Awesome. Let's go to the next question. Is anything getting in the way? What is getting in the way of taking action?
That would be a better written question.
I'm always happy to remix.
Yes.
Robert Hawley again from City Coldwater. I can't speak for the city so much because we have access to a little bit more resources, but I also used to serve as zoning administrator for 6 different townships at one time in my career, and it's usually access to those resources to help engage and make that change. So that's what I do.
Thank you.
I think what I've noticed is what's getting in the way is a lack of a sense of urgency. We haven't been able to create this sense of urgency because we all seem to scrape by. Like it always seems to work out with childcare because the providers make it work or family figures it out. And so we just haven't been able to create this sense of like, hey, we need to act now. And it just sometimes feels slow, like we can't get everyone there fast enough. So creating a sense of urgency.
Thank you. Say it louder.
Yeah, just say it louder.
Yeah, we scream that one. April.
Well, one of the things that I have an issue with is back when we had the mask. COVID, thank you. It is getting late in the day. The essential workers were not child And if those who were essential workers didn't have childcare, they could not have been essential workers. And so, that's getting in the way of seeing our childcare as essential workers. If we're not there, it's not going to happen. And I love the way Susan, the way you say it is that we're not looked at as professional. We're not, we're just supposed to be babysitters. We're just supposed to be here, and that is getting in our way, and that change, that mind shift is getting in the way. And I think that's a really hard way for us to take that action to keep going, And the second thing is, we are full of so many resources, but we're so siloed. We break up into our individual groups, but we don't always come together, And it's beautiful that we're all in this room together, but when we leave here, we still have to stay together. And that is one thing that happens, is that when we walk out of here, we go back to our silo groups, And with childcare, every group, and we don't hit them all. We have to bring our medical. We have to bring, the health. We have to bring just all the groups together to support childcare, and we don't always do that. So that gets in our way. It's the silo of our groups and our resources.
Thank you, April. I like to say that everybody else has silos, but I have a cylinder of excellence. So when we are in our silos, we have a hard time saying that we are in those silos. So just be thinking about, really reflect on, do I need to be including other people in my space? And if not, what's that going to look like? I've got one here first. Oh, Kevin's going in. Yeah, he's already got the mic.
You, buddy. So the question, it says, anything getting in the way of you taking action? Nothing is in our way of taking action. Like, we've been taking action, in Kalamazoo County, at the city. I would say, like, in terms of reframing that question, like, what's slowing down the work, like mindset. You mentioned that you lifted up the iceberg model, the mindset, and that goes both ways. So on the one end, like, it's as I hear the other folks talking, like, it's almost a deference for the private sector in terms of talking to them about this work. I heard people talk about tri-share, and they talking to the private sector, and they hoping people would. The private sector understands pressure and competition, and the reality is, the information that we have and we know, like, they need us more than we need them, and like really getting a little bit more assertive in terms of pushing the private sector and say, hey, like, y'all need to get on board, and this is why, and like, just changing that mindset in terms of on our side of how we approach things, right? The mindset things work both ways. They need to learn a lot and change, but I've been in these spaces, and it's some things that we need to improve upon too, right? And so that's one thing. And then the revenue aspect, again, private sector understands that, they'll squeeze $1 out of anything. And I believe that can be applied on the childcare side, but it's some mindset issues that we need to get out of our own way. And it could be profitable, but it's going to take like a heavy lift and some creativity, as one of the people said earlier. But it can be done, right? We can figure it out. And so, like I said, that's some of the things I've been thinking about and spinning in my head in terms of that question in particular.
I wasn't going to do this, but I think what gets in the way is us. Child care providers, child care workers, I've been in early childhood for over 40 years, and things have changed a lot, but we downplay what we do. We don't advocate for ourselves. We don't stand up and say, I deserve more than $15 an hour. I should make more than a McDonald's worker. I'm skilled. I've got a master's degree. I'm not making near what a master's degree should make. Never have. My first job teaching kindergarten was at minimum wage. it's just, we don't stand up and say, no, that's not okay with me, and no, I need more, and put the pressure to make someone make a difference. It's like, we don't put the pressure on as workers. We just go, well, I love kids, and I love working with kids, but I won't do it for free. You know, it's like, I'm in the job because I love kids, but also because I have a house to pay for. And I don't think we're honest about that, and I think that in a way, we've been pressured by society to downplay our role. It's like, it's just little kids. They're just 3-year-olds. Oh my gosh, do you know what's going on in the brain of a 3-year-old? We make huge difference in where these children end up, and we don't claim that. And I think that's one of the biggest things that gets in the way, is because we're not taken seriously. Well, you know, my mom stayed home with the kids, so you can stay home with the kids. It's like, yeah, but if I had gone to preschool, would I have been even more accomplished than I am now? Or if I had, and some backgrounds don't even have the opportunity. They're home alone sometimes as young children, or they're in harmful environments where we need them to be in a safe environment. But we don't push, because we're just like, we'll make it do. This is how much money I have. This is what I'll do. It's like, I can't tell you how many times at Child Care Center I just made something work because it wasn't going to be in the budget, kind of thing.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening. So I am Vanessa Collins-Smith, Associate Director for the YWCA, for Workforce Development, And it is so important. How many of you have mothers?
How many of us have
I want you to raise your
mothers?
hand. Okay. How many of you are mothers? Okay. So everyone raised their hand for having a mother. We do not have any reason, if we can unite strictly for that reason across America for our children, because they are our future. Just think about it. We can do this.
So you're going to join the advocacy committee, right?
Oh,
Thank you. We've got one more back here, and then we're going to start wrapping it up. Here you go, Brooke.
Thank you. I'm Brooke Rains with Child Care Network. I'm here with Christy, and we support Branch County with the foundation. Very happy to be part of that work. And I'm just sort of synthesizing, I'm not sure what question this falls under, but I'm synthesizing, we are Child Care Resource and Referral, similar to April. And I feel like we need to invite people, lots of people, not at the same time, but to be with 3-year-olds. And I'm looking at Paula, who is a longtime provider in Branch County, who is utterly fabulous. And from what I hear from almost everyone, like literally everyone, talks about Paula and how fabulous she is. Like, let's go be with Paula and see what she does, see what her kiddos are doing. I feel like seeing it and experiencing it might like change mindset. It might bring greater respect.
Yeah.
So that's something I want to be better at, is inviting people to be in that space. And we did a project many, many years ago. I've been with the agency 20 some years. And we invited legislators to spend time in childcare. And then for a morning or a couple hours or something, and then we had lunch together and gave them a fake paycheck of what they just made.
Oh, powerful.
And I will tell you that their jaws were like, excuse me? And I was like, what? That was super powerful. But I think we can still make an impact if you are with children in our settings that are doing wonderful things.
Thank you very much.
I love that idea. I think sometimes we need to have like visceral experiences for our minds to change. And so I was thinking about ways to do that. This is really important dialogue that can't stop, right? Like I think we're just getting to the meat of it, and unfortunately it's almost 7 o'clock. So we're gonna have to wrap up because we wanna make sure that you get on your way. A lot of you drove a long way to get here, and we thank you for that. I'm not even going to get to the coming soon. I think we've got it on the table. So I think I really want to just talk for a minute with everybody about something that Bronwyn brought up about this idea of infrastructure. Childcare as infrastructure. And I think that if we're not careful, terms like that can be really abstract, right? So I want you to bear with me for a moment, and I'm going to ask you, I'm going to do a terrible job of this, and I know that Maria was in the room when this was said for the first time, so she can correct me if I've got it wrong, but if your house is on fire, what do you do?
Oh, it's fire department.
It's really not your question. Right, you call the fire department and they come. That's infrastructure. You don't have to think about it. Everybody knows what it is. You know how it gets funded. Our taxes pay for it. Like, we need to be very, very explicit when we talk about this, right? Like, there is no reason every child in this country should not have the opportunity to have a thriving space with our providers that are in this room right now who know how important brain building is, who are doing such incredible work to make sure that we have a community where we can all thrive. I'm a master certified trainer in the ACE study, and I know based on the CDC's study that if we do not address what happens in people's early lives, we all pay for it forever. There is a complete parallel to this. I used to be a reading buddy back when Jen was running this program with United Way years ago. I had a little guy that I read with for 3 years. He and I got incredibly close. When it came time for the holidays and I asked him, what his favorite food was, he said, we don't do those kind of things. We don't have enough money to buy food, right? Like, I started learning a lot about his life. I also learned that over the holidays, single mom, dad was in jail, they didn't have enough money for childcare in out of school time. So his older brother, who was a year older than him, was responsible for taking care of his 2 younger siblings. And they knew they weren't supposed to use the stove, they couldn't answer the door, they had all these rules. And mom wasn't a bad mom. She did not have the resources she needed to make sure those children were safe. And it breaks my heart that that is happening everywhere all the time, and we have the ability to do something about that, and we choose not to. So we all have, just taking our rage, taking our energy, taking our passion, if we start channeling all of that, we can get to the urgency that Lindsay just talked about missing. I think we have a challenge right now because we have those competing priorities. I think all of us are a little numb because life is so chaotic right now. But we need to keep the fire up on this and make sure people see all the interconnectedness. That if we take care of this, if we take care of our youngest children and do it well, we all benefit for generations. And it's within our grasp. We're making progress, but we have to make sure that we don't get in our own way, right? I'm 56 years old, and I'm only claiming that right now to let you know that I've been in the professional space for a lot of years. And I know people who show up at meetings and just get credit for being there. And that's not what this is about. If you are going to participate, you need to take action. This is not about just coming and getting credit. It's not. We all have to do something different, and we have to start now. And even if that's just talking about it everywhere and doing the things you can to continue advocating, we all have the ability to do something. So let's not let the big things that we can't do immediately get in the way from the small things that we can do right now. So I want to thank you all for being here, for really, you're here because you got invited because you're part of this coalition. We have the ability to make change. I want to sit in this room in a year from now, and I want to be able to talk about all the things we accomplished together because we got out of our own way, because we were able to shift mindsets and beliefs that are holding us back. At the very least, if every person in this room changes their mindset, if they're holding on to some of those antiquated mindsets, we're going to be making progress, right? Talk to your family members who share those things that are not helpful or productive right now and are oppressing people. And let's make sure that we get this done. Stay tuned for more. If you are interested in, thank you for having this slide up. If you're interested in nominating somebody who is doing something phenomenal around childcare, just scan this. It's also on your tables. On September 17th, we'll be honoring our next round of childcare champions. They have typically been employers, but we actually were on the phone with someone today who's nominating a municipality for being a childcare champion. So we want to expand our thinking about what champions are. If you know somebody, give us a call. Let us know. We'll talk about what we can do. Beth's like, yes, I know, right? All right, well, did any of my partners want to say something?
I want to add one thing about this too. So this will be available to us. So we will get copies of this. We'll send them out to our implementation. I'm volunteering people right here on the spot. Our implementation leads who can send them out to their coalitions.
And I do want to just give a big shout out to all of the folks that they become invisible in a space like this and they made this happen. So shout out to the Pulse team out there who for providing this space.
So in the ways that we're all like, childcare doesn't have a big enough voice. Not all of us in here are in the childcare industry. The industries that exist in here all have very, very powerful lobbying groups. They all have very, very consistent, massive state associations. In the ways that, very, very small ways that Kathy and her team have started to lift up early childhood and childcare into like municipal conversations, just really quietly. There are ways where through other associations we can filter these things up if y'all say the thing in the rooms where you are. So if you are a researcher, if you are in economic development, if you are a municipality, those massive associations, reach out to your local partners and help put together a session at those conferences to talk about the impact of childcare on your system. It doesn't have to be you need to fix childcare to your industry, but if we have a space there, then it becomes a part of the conversations that are happening. If we're not there, if we don't get invited, we're not there.